In this episode, we're going to continue testing our REST microservice. Hi, I'm Mark Bradley, and welcome to Testing All the Things, a screencast in which we use live coding to demonstrate different types of testing tools and techniques. In this video, we're going to continue working on the REST service we started previously. We're going to add a GET endpoint for a book, and we're going to use end-to-end tests, integration tests, and some unit tests to make sure the functionality works. Let's look at the code. Before we started recording, I made a few changes to the project. Let's talk through those now. The first thing I did was I added a Postgres database to our Docker Compose setup, so we have somewhere to store our content. I've also changed the entry point script so that it waits for a successful connection to that database before it starts our Go service. I've also installed a new package that allows us to run migrations. So I've changed the main now, so we make a connection to a database and then we run any migrations we have in the folder migrations. So I've created a single migration that creates a new book table. So we can store an ISBN, a name, an image, a genre, and a publishing year for a book. As I said at the beginning of the video, in this episode, we're going to add a get a single book endpoint to our REST API. And we're going to start to do that by driving it out with end-to-end tests. So let's create a new test file for us. New Go file, and we'll call it get single book test. There we go. Now let's remind ourselves of how our first health check test looked. We're using the Go HTTP client to make a call to the health check. We expect status code and we check the body. And we're going to do exactly the same for our get a single book endpoint. We shall start by setting up a new Testify suite. We'll call it get single book suite. We'll add our first test. So as part of the get single book suite, and we'll call our test get book that does not exist. Again, we will start with a HTTP client. And we need to make a call to our API. We know we want to make a get call. So we'll make a get. Let's quickly go and borrow, make sure we go. So now we want to retrieve a book. So we'll call the resource book. And we know we want to retrieve it by an ID. We want to retrieve a single one. And we're going to use ISBNs as our ID on this. We'll start and we'll look for book with that ISBN. So the get returns a response and an error. So response. For now, we'll ignore the error. Just assume this is all going to work. Okay. And now we can start making some assertions on our response. S dot equal. Let's start with the HTTP status. So we expect the response status to be a 404, not found. We will expect http.status not found. Okay. For our response status code. So at this point, we're just designing out how our API should look. The other thing we want to check is we want to check the response body. Let's do that. S dot equal, we can use, I think we got, yeah, JSON equal. So we can give it a JSON string. Probably need to, well, at this point, need to do body equals read all q r dot body. So now we need to have a think about how we want our API to respond. So we're going to design out the error response message. Let's start with, let's say we want to have error codes coming back. So we can identify what went wrong, locate a specific point. So say code is, so it's the first one, so 001. We want a message which says something like no book with ISBN and the given ISBN. That's our test complete. So now let's run the test and see what happens. So make test. So our test has failed as we would expect it to. And let's see what happened. So line 25. So we're failing on line 25. So line 24 is successful. We're getting back a 404. Now this is probably because we haven't actually set up the root yet. So Gorilla Mux is saying 404, it's kind of the root's not found. But we're not getting the response that we want back. So let's go and look at our main, look at our code and see if we can make this test now pass. Only got one root, it's the health check endpoint. We should be able to create a new handler and deal with this situation. So let's do that. r.func handle, handle func even, and the path we want to do is /book, too many O's, /, and then we want the ISBN. ISBN. Tidy up a bit, looks like the same one, and then we have, let's copy paste. Yep. Okay, that looks good. And what do we want to do? Right. Well, we know what status we want to return, so we'll deal with that first. So w dot write header http dot status not found. But now we want to return a specific body. So let's go back and have a look. So we need a code and a message. So let's have a look at that. Let's close that, back to the main. So where's our health setup? I think it's here. So we'll put this at the top as well. Type, let's call it a JSON error struct. Code, which is a string, JSON q, and message, which is also a string, JSON message. Thank you very much. Now we can go back down to our function here, and e equals JSON error. Little fields. Okay, so our code, I believe, was 001 for our first one, and now we need our message. No book with ISBN. Okay, and be really good. Let's get the ISBN mux.vars r.context. Is that right? Or just take the no, just takes our request. So vars v dot ISBN. Go. Okay. Sprint f. And then want to do that. Not HE. Hopefully that is enough code to make our test pass. So we'll run the test and have a look. So we've made a mistake. I wonder if the issue is to do with the order these occur in. Let's do X. Let's put the right header first and then the right. Let's try again. Brilliant, and that passed. If we look up here, I think this never gets hit or never actually change anything. It just works because the default is status OK. Let's just be good, we know, and we'll move it above like this. So that is our first end-to-end test of this book endpoint complete. We now need to move on to our next test. So we've tested what happens when book doesn't exist. We now need to test what happens when a book does exist. Let's create a new test function. Test. Get single book. Get book that does not exist. Does exist, sorry. Here we go. So we'll take this same setup here. We've got the body, response. Let's be good and use a different ISBN. So go backwards. There we go. Now let's write our assertions. So let's start with the HTTP status. So s.equals, and we expect a 200 for this. Status OK. There we are. For r.status and s.json equals like so. And that's string the body. This time we're not going to expect our error response back. Let's have a quick look at the table we designed. So we're expecting ISBN, name, image, genre, and year published. The response we want back, I think it might be easier if we bring this out. Let's go X body, easier to read, so X body equals so ISBN first should be this, and then I think title should be testing all the things, and I think it's so image, genre, and year published. So image is testing.jpg. And genre, let's call it computing. And year published is, we're being a bit an int, so it is 2021. Let's add the commas, being good. Okay. So there we have our expectation set up. When we ask for book with the ISBN this, then we get a status OK, and we get a response that looks like this. But obviously this isn't going to work. We need to have this book somewhere for it to return it. We don't want to put some code in, just returns the book based on this, which is hard coded. We actually want to test this is working. So at this point, how do we do this? At this point, we need access to our database. So let's do that. So we can do some borrowing from main. We need a database connection. Here we go. Back to our test. We'll do this first. We'll do all this, the database setup first. Okay, there we go. Got this. Now, this is a bit I always forget to do. I need to bring that in. So our database isn't being used. What we're going to do whilst we're setting this up is we're just going to check the errors. We don't expect errors, and what we can do afterwards is we can just ignore them and get rid of them. But whilst I'm kind of setting up this test, I want to be comfortable that any errors aren't because of my kind of test setup. So s dot no error. We'll just give it the error, like so. It just gives us a clear idea of what's going on. And now we need to insert into our database. db dot execute a query. I think that returns an error and a result. So res and error, and we'll check there's not an error. And s dot equal res dot rows affected. There should be 1. That's the wrong way around, isn't it? So again, I'm not wanting to test my test. Ooh, does that not? No. Oh. Silly me. Okay. All this. Go. Res. So rows. We've got that error. Don't think we're going to need that. Rows affected. Go and rows 1. Hopefully that should be okay. Right, so now we need to insert into our database. So insert into book. I think it's books, not that book, not book. Yep. So we want to put in ISBN, and we want to insert its name, image. I'll tell you what. Yep, name, image, genre, and year published. Name, image, year published. Insert values. Okay, so ISBN is this. Oh, wrong place. Title. Name is this. Copy. Image is that. And year published we said was 2021. Okay. That should be everything we need to do. So now we will run the test and we'll see what happens. Okay, so got panic, unexpected error, relation book does not exist. After a little bit of investigation, this was caused by a couple of bugs in my migration setup. So I forgot to put the .up in my migration, and it should be underscores, not dashes. I also had a typo with an extra comma here, which I've now fixed. I also realized I've missed the genre from here, so we'll do that. Genre, copy, and so that was next to the published year. And I think we called that computing. Okay, let's try that again, shall we? Oh, I forgot the comma. I'll wake up in a minute. Now getting towards where we want to be. We can ignore this one. This is just the ensuring our test setup's right. It's just here, wrong. Integer type, that's easy to solve. But let's continue down here. The first one we've got so we use status, we should use status code. Mistake there. But what we can see here already is it's 200. It's expecting a 200, but it's getting 404. Not found still. So we'll start solving that. And we also can see that we are getting a different response body back. So we're expecting this kind of say genre and image and things like that. But actually what we're getting back is we're still getting back our error body. So let's jump into the main and start trying to solve this. Close the terminal, do that for a bit. Here's our handler. Now we have access to a database here, so probably the quickest way we can solve this is we can just start writing the query within here. So let's do that for now. Let's get it to just pass. So we've got DB, so db.query, we want one. That returns a row. Yep, that's perfect. So we just want one, so we'll do that. So select, and we'll do a quick copy and paste job from our test. These things from book where ISBN equals, and then we want a value. Yep. So we've got the ISBN. Variable ISBN. There we are. Missed the comma. So that does that. So this returns a row. So R row that. And what does row have on it? So row dot scan. Okay. So now we need our book. So let's go and create a type book struct. Okay, and title. genre, and year, published. Okay, so that is a string. Excellent. That's that done for us. Okay. So row.scan turns an error. Okay. So now we want a book. So B book. Okay. And then we are getting back B dot ISBN and B dot title. Genre. Published. So, okay. And then, so let's do something really simple. So if error does not equal nil, we can assume, let's assume it's not there and do this. It should work for us. And else we do copy, paste, we'll marshal the book, status, okay, and what's the problem with this? Oh, hang on, using book, body, there we go. Bit better, okay. So I wonder if that's enough code roughly to make our test pass. Let's try it. So we have a small syntactic error in our SQL. This should actually be $1. So now run this. Getting a failure on 39, and this is failing on 29. Ah, okay. Weirdly, now both tests are failing. Let's start and do a bit of a cleanup. So this we don't need anymore. Down to what we're at. We don't need this one anymore. We know this is all working. Okay. So we actually clear all this out like that. Okay. So I believe that test is now fully passing. Let's try that. Okay. So yeah, so if we go back to it, so yes, we're now failing here. Getting the right header, but the body is the wrong body. So we'll go back to our main and have a look at that. Ah, so the status is being written and the body's being, so it's very simple. We just need to have returned here. Okay, so we exit out at this point. Let's just check that's right. And there we have it. All of our end-to-end tests are now passing. So we know that if a book doesn't exist, we get back a nice error message. And if the book does exist, we get back the book's details. So now let's go back and quickly review the code we've written so far. So we're getting the ISBN from the path variable ISBN here. And well, that's not very neat. Let's take, well, then we're creating this error, which we should probably actually create down here. So let's do that. Not very neat. Put it in here like so. So then we attempt to get a book. So we query our database and we put the values from the query response from the database into our book. And if there's any kind of an error, we return a 404 to say the book's not found. And then if we found the book, we marshal the book into JSON and we return it. That's everything working really nicely, and our end-to-end tests are passing. So theoretically, we could stop here. But the code doesn't look very neat. We've got one file which does all of our HTTP function handling. It does direct access to the database, handling errors from the database, and a lot of things. So what we're going to do in the next video is we're going to look at refactoring our application and moving the responsibilities away from our main function and into other places within our code. At that point, we're going to start introducing some more unit testing and some integration testing. But what we can do is we can use some of the code we've created today and copy and paste that into those new pieces of code we create as the first step. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I'll see you again soon. Thank you for watching this episode of Testing All the Things. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please rate and review the video and subscribe to the channel. If you did not and you have any feedback, please leave a comment in the comment section of the video or contact me on Twitter @Bradle.